Hi, this is Everett, Everett's Watercolors, and this is my classroom. Good afternoon. We're expecting to have other people check in. I've got a live chat box over on the right side of the screen for you to check in and let me know where you're from. I'm broadcasting from Chesapeake, Virginia, and I know everybody is going through hard times now these days, and I thought this would be an opportunity for me to come on live and share and play around and do some art. So today I plan on doing a painting, going through the stages to show you how I do one. But in the future, like on Wednesday, I'm thinking about just making it a fun day. I'm going to do a fun project, and that'll be like a fun day. And then Saturday, when I come on 2 o'clock, I may go into maybe a couple definition terms and maybe do some techniques, things like that. But a lot of questions you give me during this broadcast will give me some ideas of what you'd like to see. So I'm going to go over to my painting table and get started. And what I have here is, well, I had a painting. Let's see, where did I put my painting? Oh, it's underneath. Okay, here we go. This is the painting I did a long time ago, and I decided I'd repaint this painting, but turn it also into a spring scene. So my first step I did was went online and I got some photographs. This is a road and some trees and a sky and some clouds, which I liked. And then I found another photograph of some fence posts and things like that. So I used those as a reference, and then I went ahead and did a design sketch. And what I have here is I'm going to do a mountain and I've got a couple little buildings back here in the back for interest. That'll make it into an old farm back here. Then I have a valley, meadow. Then I have a road coming up here. So the title of this painting is Mountain Road. So the road's going to be the main object. And I put some old fence posts out here. Now once I did my design sketch, I also did what I call a value study, and I made a smaller sketch, and then I looked at the values. And back here, for example, in the mountains will be my dark area, then down here in the valley will be a light area, and then from here forward will be a medium value coming forward. So I have 3 values in my painting. So this is what a value study is. Yeah, the idea. Good question about the paint pictures. I take several pictures, and I'll do a composite. So I don't ever. I wouldn't say ever, but most times I don't copy the pictures exactly as I see them. I take pieces and parts from different photographs or different paintings, and I put them together to make up a new composition. And that's what I did here. So my first step here is to put in some color. Now I'm going to start. I think my impact area is here. The impact area is the most important area of the painting. So I'm going to mix up some darker colors there. So I'm going to paint around, and I'll use a smaller brush. I need to put a better light on. So I'm going to little detail around these little buildings here, but I'm using the darkest colors I have. I used royal blue with some burnt sienna, which will be the color of the mountain, so it'll be dark. So a little bit of detail here, but then soon I'll pretty soon I'll be moving very fast. This is just to get the initial section down here. So around the impact area, I'm putting my darks and my best colors. Okay. Then I'm also going to introduce some of my lights. So I'll put in. I'm using lemon yellow here. And around the trees, especially this one here, I'm going to put. Now, also, I've got to decide which way my light's coming from. So, I'm going to have the light come from the top corner across. So the light path is coming this way, and so therefore, my lighter side of the tree will be. I'm going to go against what I just said, just because I want a lighter value over here. And then put a few little spring type. Okay. I think I can put one more color in there. Okay. All right, now I'm going to switch to a larger brush and then move on. This area back here, is going to be a large amount. I'm using a combination of the blue and the brown. And I'm going to leave some white showing too. I like to have a little bit of whites for sparkle. Those of you who are watching for the first time, maybe, I'm working with watercolors. I work with other mediums, but this is my favorite. Watercolors is now I can see. Okay, very good. Okay. Well, thanks for joining in, those of you who are there. Good to see you all. Okay, I see Alice. Hi, Alice. Good morning. Good afternoon. I'll have a, as I get further down on this, I'll have a funny story about this one. But right now I'm just blocking in these colors. Okay, and then for the mountains, I'm going to have a further, what can I say, further back in the landscape. There's another row of mountains here, which is going to be a lighter color. And I made some purple mixed in with some blue. I used ultramarine violet mixed in with a little bit of cerulean blue. Just give me a bluer color. But it's mainly purple or violet, and that's the mountain behind this first front row of mountains. Okay, now I'll finish off some of this. I'll work on the middle ground. I think the middle ground here, I'm going to mix a little bit of light brown, and that'll be a little ultramarine. Excuse me, yellow ochre. This is a little farm back there, so this will be the farmer's field. And he'll be planting. He just plowed this ground back there, so he'll be planting some vegetables and crops on this ground pretty soon. He's got the play. He's got the ground all. This is springtime, so he's got the. And while I'm there, I'm going to go ahead and put in some more trees. More greens here, and a touch of green here. Now, as I go further away from the center, my greens get a little more muted, and so I'm going to add a little more blues in with those greens to make them less. So they're not as bright as the other green. As I get further away, I'll get even a little bit duller. And let's see, while I'm here, I can also put in the darker side of this tree here, the one that's in shadow, and the darker side of this tree here. Get away from the small brush for a minute. Let me go back to the bigger brush. This is a 1/2-inch flat brush, and I'm going to put in some. Again, it's springtime, so I'm going to put in some of the spring leaves that are on the tree. This area. Yeah, as a matter of fact, this is a pencil sketch that I'm using here. It's a private joke. When I started painting this, I started painting on the sketch. But what this gives me then, this will give me a color sketch to study myself. So there's nothing wrong with this. I do this sometimes. After I do my design drawing, then I'll go back and I'll actually do a color sketch on a piece of paper or wherever I have. Watercolor paper or even sketch paper. This happens to be sketch paper. Okay. Now I'm ready to. I think I'll put in the road. The road. To me, the title of this painting or sketch is Mountain Road. So let me start putting the road in, and I'm going to use a little bit of orange this time because I think I look at my reference photo and I can see, an old gravel road. Or a dirt road, old gravel road that's got a little bit of orange in it and yellows, so, and some browns. So that's what I'll use. I use a little bit of orange. I see we got someone checked in from Soledo, Texas. Ginny, nice to see you. Welcome to Virginia. So I'm going to put a little bit of orange here on this road, and then I'm going to, as I come forward, I'm going to add a little more brown to give it a dirt look, and a little more orange again. And then this case here is a little bit of maybe a technique to show is as I drag the brush, I'm going to lay it flat and let it do like almost like a dry brush stroke, but it'll give me some texture on the ground here. I'll let that dry. I'll come back. I want to do something else with the road, but right now I just kind of block in that color. Also, I can work on the fence post. The fence post, I think I'll make those a gray color. So I'll mix up a gray. I'll use a little bit of ultramarine blue. Mix in just a little bit of burnt sienna. And for this case, this case I'll bring up a little test piece of paper here, another piece of watercolor paper, and I'll test out the color that I'm doing. Okay, nice. That's a nice gray, and I'll go ahead and put that gray in on top of those fence posts as I'm here. Oh, I see Steve. Hi Steve, how you doing? Good to see you. I'm having a little bit of fun here. I'm going to do now the shadow color of this. I'll put a little bit of brown on there. Then I'm going to go back and add a little bit of blue on top of that to give me a nice shadow. That's a darker gray, but it's got more of a brown to it. Okay. And then on this one also, I got 2 1/3 fence posts, or 2 1/2 fence posts showing. All right. And then I've got the cross beam here. I'll put that in. Okay. So the other big area, I'm going to take the big brush now. The big 3/4 inch brush. I'm going to mix up a variety of greens. Because this is spring, I'm going to have a spring colors, so I'm going to start with a little bit of yellow, a little bit of green number 1, and what this gives me, you'll notice here on the fence post, I have a large post going to this is perspective, giving you depth, or the impression of depth. You got large into small as you go back into the background, and the road, of course, is changing size. So that's perspective in terms of the distancing. And now there's also perspective in terms of colors. So if you start with a light color of greens, for example, or it could be blues, then come forward and make the color darker as you come forward, then that also gives you depth by changing the value of the color. And I'll do the same thing over here. I'll put a lighter value forward on the forward part of the middle. This is really the foreground, and there's a middle ground here, and right here, and there's the background. I'll go across here with some more green. As I come forward, I'll pick up a little darker green. And as I get forward, I'll pick up the dark green. I'm also making sure I'm mixing up green now. I don't like to use the pure paint out of the palette. I always like to mix the color with some other color. And green and blue are very comparable. They're analogous. Blue and green are very analogous to each other. Now I'll use a smaller brush and maybe create a little bush here. A little bit of texture in it. Okay. Now over here on this side, I'm going to put a few rocks in, just again a little variety of shapes and objects. This is an old country road. There's probably some rocks around somewhere. So a little bit of brown, burnt sienna, a little bit of yellow ochre. I'll let that dry. Let the base colors dry. And while it's drying, I got one more section. Of course, you remember what that is. It's the sky. So I'm going to use my sponge and pick up a little bit, make myself a little more room up here. And mix up a little bit of cerulean blue and maybe a touch of cobalt blue. Gives me a little variety of blues in the sky. Now I use my dot spray bottle to wet the pigment, and those are still available. We still ship out spray bottles. Okay, now for my sky, I really this picture here, or both pictures, I see the sky is nice and blue, and it gets lighter at the bottom, and then of course that is perspective. You got darks at the top and lighter as you go down toward the horizon. And up here is a little bit of cloud formation. So a combination of the two. And you see this particular sky here is no clouds at all. It's all blue. It's all blue straight across. But I like to have a little bit of variety in the sky. So not only color, but also in shapes. So I'm gonna cover the sky with a little bit of blue mixture of cobalt and burnt sienna. And I like to mix the sky right in with the landscape. So I bring that blue right on down over top of the mountains, so that there's continuity there between the colors. And I'll take the small brush now. I can soften up some of these edges a little bit. Okay. Now, one more step before I go. I got the sun coming. I got the sun coming this way with a shadow on the fence post. So I'm going to make in a little shadow pattern. I'll use a little bit of violet color, a little bit of quinacridone violet, mixed in with a little bit of brown. So here now we're going to play with the shapes here. I want to darken this shadow up a little bit on the side, so it makes a little more definition of the shadow. And we come across here with, let me see, I come across an area. This is brown, so I want to make it a darker brown as I come across. The shadow would be the same color as the object, but a little bit of darker, would add a little bit of blue to it. Now I have this more post here will also have a shadow. And there's a little bit of bump in the road, so you can just make never a straight line. And now the one back, again, the shadows also have perspective. You have darker here, and as you go back, they get a little bit lighter. Yeah. I'll cover some of that in a minute. There was a question on what type of paper I'm using, and my wife Gloria's here helping me. She's picking up the questions and passing them on. So I'll answer some questions in a moment, since I'm finished this little section here. Now, that's a little bit dark, so what I do when I'm painting is if an area is a little bit dark, I take tissue and I just blot it up a little bit to lighten that up while it's still wet. And that lightens it up. Okay. And let's see, maybe a few shadows over here on the rocks to break that section up a little bit. Now, one last thing I'd like to do is take that yellow color. I'm gonna make a few indications of some. You know, an old truck come down the road and left some tire marks. I grew up on a farm when I was younger, and I remember driving the old trucks and tractors down the road. I learned how to drive when I was 12 years old, so I could I could drive all the equipment on the farm. The trucks and the tractors and the cars. Yeah. Okay. Well, the only thing I could do at this stage now is I could use a rigger brush. A rigger brush is very nice. I use this. I've used so far. I've used a 3/4 inch flat. I've used a 1/2 inch flat brush. I've used a medium round brush. And then my fourth brush I use a lot is the rigger brush, which is a long, thin. They call it a liner. I call it a liner brush. Could be a rigger brush. It's I use that term interchangeably. But a good liner will give you a nice sharp line. And up here I'll add in a little bit of detail around the impact area. Let's say I'll get some branches here, maybe a couple of branches, because it's still springtime. You can still see a lot of branches on the trees until they're filled up with leaves. And then I thought also I would put in some grass strokes here for the up close. When you're up close, you can see more detail. When you're further back, you can't see the individual grass. So I'll just indicate there you can see the actual grass up close, and further back you cannot see the individual grass strokes. Okay, now the last little point I have is the impact area. What I'm going to do here, I'm going to take a little bit of red. The only time I use red in here on this particular painting is back here on the farm. And I'm going to put the red on these buildings back here. On the farm. Okay. Okay, now the only confession I have to make here is I had started out with a couple. Well, let me go back to the very beginning. I had an old painting which I had done before a long time ago. I decided to do a painting similar to this, but I'd bring it up to springtime. So I went on the internet and picked a couple of photographs. This was one here of the road and some trees. And then I found another photograph of the fence posts and so forth. So I combined those pictures and did the sketch on my sketch pad. And then I did a value study, a smaller little sketch to show what values I would use, the darks and the lights. I planned out my dark and light values. And the background was dark, the middle value was light, and as I came forward, there was a middle value coming forward. And then what I had done, I had transferred this, I had made this sketch on this pad, and then I had transferred it to a piece of watercolor paper. So the drawing is here. But to my surprise, when I started painting on the sketch. So this is really, it turned out to be a color sketch after I did the pencil sketch. So that this can be used now, along with the design and the values, is to go ahead and complete our actual painting on this. Which I had planned on doing today, but today I did the pencil sketch instead, and the color sketch. So that part there is where I have completed. That was a lot of fun. Let's go back with some of the questions. Let's see. I think I'll come on. All right. Let's turn this light off. And I'll leave the sketch up. I'll leave the painting up here. And I'll come back on live. Okay. Okay, I'm back live. Okay, we got I'm looking at my chats over here. We got a few folks have checked in. I appreciate that, and where you're all from. Martha's here, Alice is here, Steve's here, Jeannie's here from Texas. Nice to see you. And the question I had, the brand of paper. There's a lot of paper out there that's good watercolor paper. The best ones I use is artist quality paper, which is 100% cotton. And my brand is really Strathmore, which is a Gemini brand of Strathmore paper. It's Gemini is the brand name. It's distributed by Strathmore. And it's a very good quality. I use 140 pound. Here's what I drew on. I used 300 pound also. But I've used many other brands of, I've used Arches, I've used other brands of paper also. The spiral book, that's my favorite sketchbook is the spiral because it lays open. I can separate it very easily. So all my sketchbooks are usually spiral. Even my painting pads are all spiral bound because it's easier to turn the pages and lay them flat. So I usually have like a 9x12 size at least, and I have several other sketchbooks that are smaller, but 9x12 is my favorite size. It's handy enough to carry around, also very portable.
What brand is it?
Well, let's see. I don't know what brand this one is. This happens to be, it happens to be a sketchbook. I don't go by the brand. I don't go by the brand, just by the size. Okay, another question was mixed media. No, I have done mixed media in the past, but usually watercolor is what my primary media is because it's so flexible, and I've done so many things with it. But I have used acrylics before, and I have used even crayons and colored pencils and so forth. So there's a lot of things out there that I use in art. And in fact, during these presentations, I plan on using other media just to play around with and get some questions on. I've been painting for about 30 years, so I've got a very large background of different things that I've tried and tested. I guess the other question is on washes or anything like that? Okay. Well, I know we're all going through some rough times today. Most of us are inside trying to stay busy, and I hope this has been an opportunity to have you look at something, maybe think about something besides things we're going through, and it gives me an opportunity to show what I can do. And I like to teach. This was just a little demonstration just to kind of get the community together and to share some of my ideas on what I do. There's a lot more down the road. Next time I may do some mixed washes and then turn them into some other type of project. I'm working on that right now. And so I want to have some fun. On Wednesday it'll be like a fun day just to play with art, with different techniques. So, if any more questions? Jeannie had a question about wetting. No, I didn't. I don't wet the paper all the time. Wet on wet is good for maybe the sky or some large areas, but the tighter places I like to do wet on dry because it's easier to control the watercolor. But for skies and for maybe water and larger areas of the painting, I do use some wet on wet techniques, which I wet the paper first, and then add. And in the future, I will be demonstrating some of those techniques that I do. Today was kind of a landscape showing. It was really a landscape painting, and it was showing the layers and values of light, middle, and dark value. and also to put on a shadow pattern. Think about the sizes. If you look at the size of the, let's go back to the painting. If you look at the size of the landscape, you've got a size in the sky, you've got a smaller size in the land or in the background, mountains. Then you got a larger area here in the foreground. So those are three separate areas of the landscape, and you want to have them all different sizes. And you'll notice the horizon line is not in the middle of the paper. The horizon line is about right here. It's about one third from the top of the painting. Okay. Okay, I've got a few more minutes if anyone has some other questions while I'm here, but I'll invite you back on Wednesday at 2 o'clock. I'll be on live, and also Saturday. So invite some of your friends. Let them know what's going on, and maybe they enjoy tuning in. I'll be putting the announcement out on Facebook and on YouTube, and I may be trying out on Facebook next time. I don't know. We'll just see. We'll see how this one works out. If you've been happy with the process, you've been happy to have logging on, and any problems with finding me, let me know down in the comments if you have any questions or things you want me to get back to you on. So I appreciate you checking in, and I had a good time. So I want to say have a nice day, and all stay safe and take care of yourself. So bye for now, and see you next time.